to thank all my voters for watching this.
Rocky, thank you for agreeing to this interview. How does it feel to return to Papua New Guinea and see your life's work showcased in this exhibition?
I was shocked, amazed. Didn't think anyone come and look at it, but they did. It was wonderful.
So what does focus 50 years of Papua New Guinea through the lens mean to you personally?
It reminds me how old I've become doing all this.
You got my question?
Yeah. So do the question again.
Uh, what does focus 50 years of PNG through the lens mean to you personally?
It reminds me how old I've become doing all this wonderful work.
Right. When you walk through the gallery and see your own photographs, what emotions come to mind?
I thought this would never happen, is the first one. Yeah, I'm going, wow.
How has Papua New Guinea changed from the time you first began photographing it to today?
Air travel and hotels have become much more expensive. The people are much more sophisticated now. A lot of people have been around the place a lot, which they hadn't done before. Yeah, it's different. Yeah, very positive from that point of view.
Can you take us back to when and how your journey in Papua New Guinea began?
Right. I wanted to go and work in a mine somewhere. I was sitting in Adelaide at my parents' place, having just spent 6 years in the UK, and I applied for several mining jobs, and I thought the one I really want is Bougainville Copper. This is in 1976, and I got accepted by Bougainville Copper after the interview. And some weeks later, I hopped on a plane and flew. I ended up in Port Moresby for a night at the Gateway, and then I went to the next day to, what's it called, Europa Airport outside Kyoto, and then I got taken to the mine. Well, not to the mine. I got taken to Lolaho. I was on the coast at Lolaho to work on the ship loader and filter dryer as a mechanical fitter. And the next day, I didn't go to work. They took me to the once a week introduction day to the mine site. And so I went up there, and we have lectures to many people and a tour of the mine and the facilities and that sort of stuff, shown a couple of movies, and it was a great day. Then the next day I started work down the filter dryer.
So, what first drew you to photograph this country? Was it the people, the landscape, or something deeper?
All of them. The people, the landscape, the lifestyle, the colours, just, it was wonderful. For me, it was paradise. Unfortunately, I was working as a fitter to start off with, and then I did some work on the side, which Bougainville Copper bought off me, and then after I left the mine, a couple of times I was actually offered the job doing all that stuff for the mine, but I didn't. I wanted to stay in Moresby, which was really nice in those days. But I came over twice to shoot annual reports. That was good. And I went to Bougainville other times for Ella Motors and other companies, half of which I can't remember these days. Yeah, it was great.
Do you remember your first assignment or the first photo you ever took in PNG?
There's something in Bougainville, I can't remember. It would have been either the ship loader and filter dryer or somewhere near the camp at Lolaho. I do not remember. There was a sad saga about those early photographs. There were 35mm Kodachrome slides, and for safekeeping I sent them all to my parents' house in Adelaide, and Dad, we were on the slope of a hill, and Dad had dug a cubby hole under the house down one side, and all my films were in there, and my brother's films and my father's films. And one day, several years later, a water pipe burst under the house and destroyed nearly everything.
How Did those early years shape your understanding of Papua New Guinea and its people?
Oh, it took me a while to work out that my initial impressions were wrong. I got re-educated, which was good. Yeah.
The Prime Minister described your generation as part of the Somare generation, the nation builders. How do you feel about that?
Well, I got to photograph Somare many times in the end. Wonderful man to photograph. Really lovely face to photograph and stuff. Good man to talk with and stuff. He liked teasing me. Yeah, it was good. I got to know most of his children quite well. Yeah, it was good.
Over decades, you've witnessed Papua New Guinea's growth, independence, elections, social change, development. What moments stand out as defining chapters?
Wow. Well, the Rabaul eruption being one of them. Politics changed a lot. And I came in the era when very shy politicians started to speak out a lot. And then as time went by, they spoke out a lot more. That'd be the best description.
So, how did you balance the beauty and challenges of Papua New Guinea in your visual storytelling?
Well, most of my work when I was based in Moresby as a commercial photographer in the early days was advertising and company work, which is very similar. In most advertising shots, the pictures are all very staged. You might do it 6 times to get it right, all that sort of stuff. And this is the days of before autofocus and before digital, and it was slow, and we used to shoot Polaroids first to make sure we had the lighting and composition right, and then do it. Hope the film came out all right.
Are there any photographs that, to you, best capture the spirit of Papua New Guinea at 50?
Wow, that's a trick question. Wow. Oh. Can we come back to that one later? Do another one.
Okay. So, how did you and Diana Houston decide on what stories or subjects to focus on across such a vast and diverse country?
Well, I was never under the water with her, so I had no control over what she did. And she was never with me on land when I was taking pictures, so we had no control over each other. Well, I did what I was paid to do, then I'd try and do other shots while I was there or on the way to and from or on my days off or something like that. Yeah.
Did you ever feel that your camera became a bridge between communities or between Papua New Guineans and the rest of the world?
I'm not sure. I mean, I did stuff for news agencies and Australian newspapers and stuff, but they wrote the stories, which I usually agreed with. But yeah, again, the best one was the Rabaul eruption. So several days after the eruption started, basically hardly any PNG media had been to Rabaul. The overseas media all flown in and chartered choppers and planes to get in and stuff. So the Prime Minister's department got a twin-engine plane charter and flew a group of us in, including me. I think I was shooting for the Prime Minister's office, department, whatever, when it happened. And all the major news outlets were with us. And when we got there at Tokua, they put us in an open-back single-cab Mazda ute. And we were in the ash all day, falling down on us. And so I took my larger cameras over, my Mamiyas, and I rarely pulled them out of the case to take pictures. When I did, I used them quickly and put them back in, wrapped them up in rags, tried to dust them down, which is almost impossible. And even the 2 pilots came with us because they wanted to sit at Tokua all day. They wanted to go and have a look at Rabaul like the rest of us. Yeah.
So, what kind of equipment did you use in those early years, and how has technology changed your craft over time?
Well, it's a lot easier now that it's digital and you have very good autofocus. There was no autofocus then and there was no digital then. The scientists were still working on these things. I shot transparency or slide film, and the exposure had to be pretty accurate within half a stop. We didn't have Photoshop then, anything like that, to try and rescue things, but a positive film is hard to rescue to a certain extent. So like if I was doing like two people at a hotel having a meal or something, the chef would make up the right food and there'd be the right napkins and the right background and all that sort of stuff. And they'd say what they wanted. There might be an art director from an ad agency or the hotel manager or something. And I'd do the first, they have studio flashes all around it. And I'd do the first shot on Polaroid. I'd wait a minute and a half for it to develop and then I open it up, hand them the Polaroid. I'd look over their shoulders, see if I made a mess of something. And they'd say, let's push that little sauce bottle a little bit to the right or something, and those sorts of things. And maybe we'll get him to use the other hand or whatever. It usually went on for quite a while before we got the final shots. And these days with digital, well, you just go click and lift up the camera and there's the picture in front of you. And it didn't cost anything for the Polaroid, which was quite expensive film.
So how did you manage to photograph in such remote and rugged locations before the digital era?
Because I had two sets of everything. So with the big cameras, I have Nikons as well, but with the other cameras I would carry two camera bodies, and just in case one of them decided to have a mood and not work or something, I always use the other one. And I'd have a wide angle lens, a normal lens, a short telephoto lens and a long telephoto lens, and just pray they all kept working. The lenses weren't usually a problem. The film magazines did uneven winding onto the next frame quite often. You had to send them away for repair. Occasionally a camera body would start to play up, so I'd mark it with a piece of tape or something as which one it was. And when I got back, I'd send the camera body and maybe something else needed repair off to a place in Brisbane for repair. Couldn't get the repairs done in PNG.
What are the biggest challenges of documentary photography in a country as diverse and geographically challenging as Papua New Guinea?
Well, doing documentary photography that's not staged, it's the right person, right time, right place, right equipment all at the same time. And it doesn't happen all the time. Especially with medium format and you're going so slow, with a Nikon of that stuff as well. But it's just a luck thing. You could be out in the morning and in the afternoon the clouds go away and the light's beautiful, or vice versa, you know. So like, you cannot win all the time.
Looking at today's generation of photographers, what advice would you give them about patience, storytelling, and integrity?
The first bit of thing I tell all of them, it's not as cheap as you think. They all think they've got one camera and it's going to work all the time. They don't. You need a second camera to back up, because one day it will fail on you when you're in the middle of nowhere doing some really good stuff and it won't work for you anymore. It's a very expensive thing to get into, but it's cheaper than it used to be. Yes. The digital cameras don't have, they don't have problems with the latest ones with a shutter or a mirror, which shutters in particular used to cause problems.
Were there moments when the work became emotionally or physically overwhelming?
I used to get tired, but no. No, I mean, I wasn't in a war zone. I weren't photographing people being hacked up and shot and everything and dying of starvation. I avoided that stuff by staying in PNG. So I didn't have those horror things to do. I saw things I wasn't happy about. People in villages with no medical help. But normally I went to where there was a hole, there's a big town or a hole in the ground. A hole in the ground is a mine or an oil field or something like that. Yeah. And I was very impressed with the way these big resource companies do so much to help the landowners with medical and stuff. The first thing that happens is all of a sudden the first aid post is better equipped and has all the medicines they need, which doesn't normally happen these days.
Okay. So, what keeps you motivated after 50 years behind the lens?
I like taking pictures.
So how do you hope future generations, especially young Papua New Guineans, will view your work?
It's up to them. I mean, photography, like paintings, to me is a personal taste thing. I'll do a shot that I think is really wonderful, and the first person don't go, that's really boring. What did you do that for? And then someone else says, oh, it's okay, and someone else says, I really like it. You know what I mean? So like, it's a personal taste thing, and you can't keep everyone happy all the time. I like doing rugby because there's lots, especially with digital. You couldn't afford to shoot it with film and PNG. I used to do it like on 2 rolls or something on a game, or maybe 4, and I shoot like 1,200 shots a game near the end, or a couple of thousand sometimes. It was a very exciting game. And I used to like getting the action. You just had to go click at the right moment, and you do a lot of clicks to hope to get the best action.
The Prime Minister has mentioned plans to digitize your collection for schools and archives. What are your thoughts on this?
Excellent idea, otherwise it'd be all lost. And they have to go around and digitise all the old family photo albums, which I believe are at the University of Papua New Guinea, because I've seen some like 30 years ago, and of course the National Archive and stuff, but that's not very well funded. They've always got troubles with the air conditioning and stuff, so just like the museum.
How would you like your legacy to be remembered within Papua New Guinea's national story?
I tried to take some good pictures.
Okay, we come to the final questions. If you could describe Papua New Guinea in one image, one that sums up 50 years,
Oh,
what would it be?
cool. Can I go back to that one? That's, I have to think about that. One image, 10 maybe, one. Crikey. Any other questions?
What messages do you have for the people of Papua New Guinea as the nation reflects on its 50th anniversary of independence?
Please don't let the nation fall apart and start civil wars again.
And finally, after all these years, what does Papua New Guinea mean to you? Not just as a photographer, but as a person.
A beautiful place that I was lucky enough to get a job at and then forget to leave afterwards. So I left in 2021, having arrived in 1976.
Anything else you would like to say?
What was the first question I didn't answer?
What does focus 50 years of PNG through the lens mean to you personally?
A chance for many people to see some pictures that hardly anyone's ever seen.
The other one is, if you could describe Papua New Guinea in one image, one that sums up 50 years, what would it be?
Oh God, that's really hard to do. God. Well, I suppose you could say my portrait of Grand Chief Sir Michael Somare on the 50 kina note, because I did that. Otherwise, it's too difficult to answer. I want to produce about 20 different pictures.
Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, vote for Rocky in the next election, even though I don't qualify. I don't know. I can't think of anything. It's a beautiful place. Well, if we have happiness and law and order scene, you get a lot more tourists coming in. Yeah, a lot more.